There's only 8% of films that were made by women. I mean, what do you think that says?
It's fine. Like when we make little movies, go make your little movie. Starts to get dangerous when women have their hands on a lot of money. You know what you're saying? You're saying it's a tiny percentage, but look at how many of those movies were movies that made an impact. Like if you've had your mouth shut for so long, almost like a geyser, like having your hand on something. Well, when it bursts, it's going to come out really powerfully. When I really became a director was actually, I think, the first time that the morning that Trump was first elected. I think I was like, I have a lot more to say than I've been saying.
Do woke white women have their own language? Do they always speak using vague terms and incoherent soliloquies? Do they speak in coded language to prevent those of us who are toxically masculine from being able to understand them? I have watched that clip several times this morning. I have no idea what the hell Margaret Gyllenhaal is talking about. But my name is Maggie!
It doesn't matter what your name is!
I would imagine that most of you guys have never heard of Maggie Gyllenhaal. Initially, I thought Jake Gyllenhaal decided to embrace progress. I thought he finally made the courageous decision to transition from a male birthing person named Jake to a female birthing person named Margaret. But as it turns out, Maggie Gyllenhaal is his lovely sister. In the year of our Lord 2016, she decided to abandon her only talent of converting oxygen to carbon dioxide to focus on directing films that no one is interested in watching. 2016 was so traumatizing for me. When the orange misogynist was elected, I knew it was my calling to defend women by fighting toxic masculinity. I knew it was my calling to become a girl boss. All of my young single men out there, if you're ever on a date with a woman and she proudly describes herself as a girl boss, excuse yourself from the table and immediately get the hell out of there. Don't even worry about paying the tab since she wants to be the boss. Since she wants to make boss moves, she should have no problem picking up the bill. 2021, Maggie Gyllenhaal made her exciting debut as a director with a film called The Lost Daughter. Now, with this being her immaculate debut, I guess Hollywood studios lacked faith in Maggie's ability to indoctrinate the audience because they only gave her $5 million to produce this miniature turd. But even with a budget that low, The Lost Daughter still managed to find a way to lose millions of dollars. The film generated just over $700,000 at the box office, but that's okay. That's okay. In fairness to Margaret, The Lost Daughter was only released in a select few theaters. It was eventually released on Netflix, where it received nothing but praise from the mainstream media, along with receiving numerous accolades from doofus film festivals. For normal people, that doesn't mean a damn thing, but for the wanker spankers in Hollywood, the directorial debut of Maggie Gyllenhaal winning multiple meaningless awards, that meant a star is born. 5 years later, Maggie releases her follow-up turd called The Bride. Matter of fact, the film was just released this past weekend. The movie is a retelling of the classic story of Frankenstein, but it's from the perspective of a woke white woman. Ooh, captivating. According to Maggie Gyllenhaal, I wanted to present an opportunity for a strong feminist woman. I wanted to focus on consent. The bride finds herself in such an insane situation. I mean, it's really bonkers. She was brought back from the dead without her consent, and she's forced to be the wife of someone she's never met. Wowzer! This movie sounds amazing! That does not sound amazing or entertaining. It sounds like the traumatic reality of young girls living in Islamic countries who are forced to marry aging fossils. Islam is the religion of peace. Basically, The Bride is the feminist version of Frankenstein, and it was directed by a woke white woman. Now, imagine my surprise. Just imagine my surprise when I found out that movie theaters this weekend were completely empty. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Link to the second channel is in the description below. Today on the second channel, going to be talking about a bitter divorce in Miami. Earlier this morning, the Miami Dolphins announced that they were dumping Tua Tagovailoa. Now that is not surprising. What is surprising? The Dolphins are willing to eat almost $100 million just to make Tua go away. So if you haven't already, click the link in the description below, subscribe to the second channel. With her first film being a massive failure, it was only natural that Hollywood decided to drastically increase the budget for Maggie Gyllenhaal's second film. Instead of donating $5 million, Warner Brothers, they decided to donate $90 million in woke welfare to produce this toxic turd. Once you include the cost of marketing and promotion, Warner Brothers probably spent $170, $180 million on this garbage. Now, what did they receive in return on their investment? Opening night, the film generated $3 million. By Saturday, it was projected that The Bride would end the weekend with $8 million in sales. But Maggie Gyllenhaal, she refused to go down without a fight. Margaret refused to be nominated for the 2026 Huge Embarrassing Failure Awards. By some miracle, she was able to quadruple opening night sales, and The Bride ended the weekend with $14 million. Translation: this turd was flushed down the pooper. This is a massive, massive failure. This is an unmitigated disaster. Now, keep in mind, box office sales are split 50-50 between the production company and the movie theaters, which means this film is on pace to lose almost $100 million, maybe even over $100 million. Now, the good news for Maggie Gyllenhaal, she doesn't have to suffer through her huge embarrassing failure all alone. Margaret is not the only Hollywood director. She's not the only woke white woman in Hollywood who can't draw an audience. Back in 2018, Hollywood movies generated almost $12 billion just here in America alone. Now, adjusted for inflation, it would be around $15.5 billion. Last year, box office sales were down to a cool $8.6 billion, a decline of 44% in 7 years. Hollywood is struggling, and it's not hard to figure out why. This is what happens when you alienate the vast majority of the country. This is what happens when you create films to indoctrinate instead of creating movies that entertain. Now, of course, doofus Hollywood directors, they don't see it that way. They continue to blame streaming services. They continue to blame social media or YouTube. They blame short attention spans. They continue to blame everyone but themselves. And that is the main reason that Hollywood is struggling. If you refuse to address the real problem, the problem never gets resolved, and it doesn't get resolved because Hollywood doesn't think they're the problem. They think you are the problem. You know, Hollywood has always been liberal, but for decades, they did their best to disguise their personal politics. We used to have these things called gatekeepers. For years, gatekeepers were criticized for holding people back. And look. I'm not saying gatekeepers were always a good thing, especially in Hollywood, where people were encouraged to sacrifice their dignity just to be accepted. But if there was one good thing about gatekeepers, they maintained order. They maintained a level of control over the business. They prevented people from embracing the woke wiener publicly. Now, obviously, Hollywood was embracing plenty of wiener behind the scenes, but they didn't do it publicly because they didn't want to alienate half the country. They didn't want to give people any reason not to watch their product. But over the last few years, Hollywood has been infected with the disease of politics. When I was growing up, Saturday Night Live was somewhat balanced politically. They made fun of everyone. I remember in the late 90s, they were absolutely brutal with Billy Clinton. Late night shows, they made fun of all politicians. Leno, Letterman, Conan O'Brien. They weren't trying to entertain a woke audience. They were trying to entertain the entire country. But over the last few years, Hollywood has become one-sided. They're no longer afraid to show their bias. The gatekeepers no longer have control. Damn near everyone in Hollywood has been infected with an incurable case of stage 4 OMB. Orange Man bad! And once the disease reaches stage 4 levels, the end result is always the same. Huge, embarrassing failure. The Bride is being described as one of the biggest disasters in the history of Hollywood. Now, that used to be a description that we would hear every 5, maybe 10 years. But lately, we hear that description every 2 or 3 months. You see, the problem with embracing the woke wiener, the problem with the woke fungus, besides the fact that it is designed to seek and destroy, the problem with the fungus, it eliminates creativity. When you're forced to abide by the woke commandments, your creative options are very limited. Think about it. Can't make fun of black people, especially black women. That's bad, bad, bad. Can't make fun of illegal immigrants. That's no bueno. Can't make fun of women. That's misogyny. In Hollywood, you're only allowed to denigrate the white man, and you're damn sure allowed to denigrate Christianity. Those are your only options. What ends up happening? You completely alienate 60-70% of the country. Another 20% refuses to watch because it's not entertaining. So all you're left with is the 10% of the country who spends lonely Friday nights spanking the wanker. And they've already spent all of their money on batteries to keep their automated girlfriend alive. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys later.